It's finally summer and I have the next couple of months to myself. With classes out the way, I don't have to use all my free time in making these videos. This is gonna be paradise.
Minion! There is a new internet question, and it's proving to be quite contentious.
What is it?
I'm not the most familiar with your human discourse, but from what I have gathered, it seems that this has stemmed from a single question.
Go on.
Would you rather be alone in the forest with a man or a bear?
I
don't know about you, but I would choose the bear 10 times out of 10. You know, as a gator myself, I've had a lot of experience with bears, and they just be relatively chill to disgusting humans that concern me. Especially the little I've gathered from the internet, if that's anything to go off of.
I did it!
Well, if that's your only gauge of humanity, I guess that's fair enough.
Now, if the bear was Freddy Fazbear, then I would have my doubts.
What do you mean? An IRL Grizzly is way more dangerous than Freddy freaking Fazbear.
Bro, I live in the wild. I have met grizzly bears. They aren't all that.
Do you even know what a grizzly bear is? Aren't you colorblind or something? Being a gator and all?
I'm not colorblind, fool! How do you think I picked out my orange sweater? But anyways, I knew you humans weren't too bright, but this takes the cake. He's literally metal.
You don't know what you're talking about, man.
How dare you question me?
Shut up, you freaking sewer salamander.
3 hours later.
Grizzly bears beat freaking tigers, man. Didn't Freddy Fazbear lose to him after a crowbar? Do you think that a human with a crowbar can beat a grizzly bear? Don't even start.
No, Freddy, no, Freddy's gonna win. No, I don't want to hear about Freddy Fazbear.
Most intelligent gator, everybody.
Enough. This obviously isn't going anywhere.
Agreed.
Why don't you make a silly little video and actually look into it, since making these videos seems to be the only thing you use your brain for?
Fine, but I don't expect a verbal concession to all 24,000 of my subscribers when you're proven wrong once again.
Do whatever you think is best. I have grander things to attend to. But don't worry, I will be back when I'm proven right.
Yeah. Don't you got a Florida man to lose to? Get out of my sight. Oh, you guys have been here this whole time? Well, I guess you know what this week's video is gonna be.
Hello? I wanted to record a message for you.
Alright, since certain people need a reminder on how strong bears are, let's go over them. One thing to note about animals is that they all kind of vary in terms of feats, because well, not every bear is just made equally. Think of someone like Aiden Ross, and then think of someone like Brock Lesnar. One of these guys is one of the freakiest specimens on the planet Earth, and the true epitome of an athlete, while the other guy is Aiden Ross. So technically, while yes, both of these guys are humans, one's just built differently. And it's kind of the same thing like that for animals. So for this segment of the video, I want to make it absolutely clear that I'm going to talk about the peak of bears. So sort of a comp IRL grizzly, so yeah. Alright, so with that out the way, let's get right into the stats. Male grizzly bears can weigh an enormous 400 to 600 pounds, or 200 to 300 kilograms for my metric system fans. But I did find one source that said they can weigh around 315 kg, or around 630 pounds. And for Kodiak bears, these guys can weigh like 1,000 pounds, so yeah. Moving on to height now, when they walk on all fours, they're around 3 to 5 feet. But obviously when they stand on their hind legs, they can double that height, as they can reach up to around 9 feet, or more exactly around 2.7 meters tall. Grizzlies are rightfully considered some of the most powerful animals on the planet Earth, and they literally have no predators in their natural environments. On average, they're around 5 to 7 times stronger than humans, and they're pretty much the apex predators of the woods. Unless you believe in things like Bigfoot or something. Don't worry guys, I believe too. But moving back to bears now, according to Animal Facts Encyclopedia, quote, grizzlies may have encounters with cougars, wolverines, and wolves, black bears, or even coyotes, but these small animals will give away quickly, abandoning kills, dens, and resting spots, unless in the case of a wolf or coyote pack, they have serious numbers on the grizzly, and even then the risk is too great, as a grizzly bear can kill a wolf or a mountain lion with a single swipe of its paws. But you can get even crazier with this sentiment, as apparently a grizzly bear was able to decapitate a freaking moose with a single swipe of his paws. The reported event took place in Alaska in 1895 by a Russian miner who was hiking through the wilderness, and according to his account, he witnessed a moose drinking water from a stream when apparently a grizzly came from the other side. And one thing to know about mooses is that they're pretty territorial, so once he saw the bear in his grill, he wanted all the smoke. So he ran right up to the bear, and the bear set himself up, and apparently with a single slap of his hand, he decapitated the moose, and his head went flying 15 to 20 feet away. Now, did this happen? Apparently. Though I will admit this account has been met with skepticism, but for some more verifiable information, bears are often pitted against Spanish bulls during animal fights, and apparently they can break their necks. Grizzly bears also have a lot of scaling to tigers because in Russia, these two animals share the same environment, with it being reported that tigers often have to get the jump or ambush on these guys in order to win clean. But moving on to some numbers now, according to zoologist.com, an experiment was done in which food was kept inside of a 700-pound dumpster. Said dumpster was immediately sealed and put into the location of a grizzly bear, the bear being enticed by the smell of the food, and he was able to apparently ragdoll the dumpster around like folding a bookshelf. So yeah, these guys are strong. Keep in mind the bear was just chilling, and the real estimate for a bear's strength is probably much higher. While bears are physically powerful, don't sleep on their bite force, as they have a bite force of around 1200 psi, which is capable of crushing a human skull and also crunching into bones. Their claws are around 4 inches as well, and they're literally designed for digging into things such as flesh. I want to note that all this would scale to their durability, as most of these instances involved fighting other animals, and for the AP of grizzly bears, their durability often scales to this, as grizzlies fight with themselves a lot. So yeah, they're not like glass cannons or anything like that. Bears are literally so durable that according to grandviewtours.com, which is a hunting site, apparently bear skulls are so thick that even strong shotguns or even rifle bullets might not penetrate it. But there's more to talk about when it comes to bears, and especially their durability, as I was able to find a story about a bear named the Boss. This guy was just a G and a true monster, right? Among bears. He used to just eat them apparently. But anyways, I was able to find an instance where he was reported to be able to shrug off getting hit by a train, which is crazy because these things just obliterate whatever's in front of them. You can go watch a video on YouTube. I don't think I can show y'all, but apparently this guy walked it off casually, and due to this, I was able to get a calculation from my good friend Godzilla King of the Monsters, and he was able to determine that the boss can endure forces at a low end around wall plus, and at a high end being around small building level. And yeah, I know the boss is kind of a weird outlier bear. You know, he used to eat other bears. What else do I gotta say? But seeing as how for this simulation we'll be using peak bears, this is something that's applicable for our analysis. But moving on to speed now, as for travel speed, these guys are consistently reported to be able to run at around 35 miles per hour, and they can keep up with American bisons and moose. But for higher ends, old sailor reports said that grizzly bears were faster than their old horses, which is actually consistent with a report from the National Yellowstone Park, with the same article stating that they can keep up at that speed almost indefinitely. Not to sit here and say bears have infinite stamina, but I'm just saying, it's not like in short bursts. They can run at that speed for a minute. But as for their attack speeds and reactions, bears can reportedly swipe at speeds equivalent to 70 miles per hour. Bears also showcase their fast reaction times as shown when they literally catch passing salmon in midair during their migrations. So as it presented, bears are truly nature's ultimate killing machines, but at the same time you watch a video on YouTube, they seem pretty chill. So with this all being said, I can easily understand why Lynn Rogers, who's an American biologist, once said, and I quote, "A grizzly bear is not an enemy of man, but a force of nature, to be respected and admired." Okay, before I get into this, I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Sharoris. He gives me all my FNAF scaling, and he's helped me on almost every FNAF video on the channel. So be sure to bless him up, as I'll put his channel link in the description and it should be on screen. Alright, and there's one thing I have to establish before getting into FNAF scaling, and it's due to the way that FNAF chooses to present itself, i.e. Photoshop backgrounds with JPEGs, the aspects do a great job of distracting people from how powerful these guys are in lore. And if you don't think the perception that they have is nearly as bad as I'm saying that it is, I'm still getting comments about why Mike Tyson would beat the FNAF animatronics nearly a year later after publishing that first video. So with all that being said, how powerful would Freddy Fazbear beyond ironically? Alright, well, for starters, one thing that people often forget is that a crucial aspect of the games is that all these guys can shove you into a metal suit. And they do it so violently that their whole body is crushed, causing their eyes to pop out of the sockets and stuff like that, instantly killing them. The process is described here by Fungi if you guys want to read up on it, but yeah, these guys can casually ragdoll human beings. But despite that, I've heard some people make the claim that this is only applicable when talking about the character's lifting strength and not really, something that scales to AP. But they fail to consider that the pressure that they would be exerting requires force, which can be transferred into energy. So yes, not only is this a lifting feat, it also doubles as an attack potency feat as well. I can't really give you guys an exact calculation for this feat, but seeing as how the whole body is compressed and the eye pockets are literally popped out, we can say that at the very least, this is a skull-crushing feat, which would typically range in the wall-level ranges of attack potency. For some more contentious implications, we're gonna have to talk about the Fungi statement that says that apparently Freddy Fazbear is capable of shoving a metal exoskeleton into you. Don't ask me how that works, as the Fungi seems to be confused on the overall process himself. But for another feat that's much more verifiable, we're gonna have to talk about the game's official Steam description, as well as in-universe newspapers that seem to heavily imply that these guys can rip apart limbs, which would be a feat of strength equivalent to 44,384.056 joules, or wall level. But perhaps the most famous feat from anything FNAF related period comes to us from the Bite of 83, where Golden Fredbear was able to bite the crying child. I don't want to get too into it. But we can also assume that this would also fall into the same realm of skull crushing in terms of attack potency, so some more wall level stuff as well. It's important to note that Freddy Fazbear at the very least scales to this, but more than likely upscales this feat, as he's a newer model than the ones that were used back in Fredbear's Family Diner. But for higher ends, we're going to have to dive into some of the novels and the scaling chain that is presented in those books, as well as establish why it's okay to use this scaling when talking about the scaling for the games. Okay, while yes, it's true the video games and books are separate continuities with their own unique lore, but there is some overlap that we can talk about. For starters, the guides even state that despite them being separate continuities, they're canon to one another in terms of like world building and how the verse works for the most part. To give you guys an example of what I'm talking about, stuff like Remnant and how it works, and even really big stuff like William Afton as like an entire character, were concepts that were first introduced in the novels that eventually made their way into canon. So fundamental stuff like power and strength of the animatronics in these stories should be applicable when talking about their game counterparts. So let's start off with talking about the twisted ones. For those of you guys who may not know what I'm talking about, this set of animatronics seems to be the novel's universe's version of the Nightmare animatronics. And while in the main canon these guys weren't even real because they're either figments of a dying crying child's coma-induced nightmare, or they're just William Afton fear toxin-induced hallucinations. I'm not sure which one they are at this point, but they're just not real in the main canon, but in the novels they seem to be canon via the twisted ones. And let's talk about some of their feats because they have some good stuff. As Twisted, Freddy has a feat in which he was able to break through a wall and create a particularly violent fragmentation, seemingly effortlessly as well. Which when calculated, it's been determined that this feat would get into the small building ranges of attack potency. And as for durability, these guys were able to survive a gasoline explosion. This right here is another feat that's gotten calculated to small building level, but I know what you guys are thinking. This video is about Freddy Fazbear, so why am I talking about these knockoffs? Well, it's because the OG gang has a scene in the end of the book where they're able to stomp them out, unironically. During this instance, I also think it's important to note that these guys showed the ability to throw punches and fight at a competent level. But yeah, they literally smashed the Twisted Ones. So the OG gang, including Freddy Fazbear, would upscale off the Twisted Ones, who have shown casual small building to small building plus level attack potency as well as durability. Moving on to the speed of the animatronics, and this part specifically always finds itself to be quite contentious. But if you're not new around here, you'd know that I would have these guys falling around superhuman to even subsonic speed. As in the games, I believe that them appearing sporadically around the pizzeria is an actual indication of their speed, as multiple guidebooks seem to heavily imply that this is the case, as well as the previously established novels to have plenty of statements likening their movements to blurs, where our main human characters have trouble keeping up with them and even perceiving them at certain times. Alright, so looking at all the stats, and I can confidently say that,
What was that?
Freddy Fazbear wins.
Louder!
Freddy Fazbear wins. While bears are truly nature's ultimate killing machine, Freddy Fazbear's attack potency metas are just far greater than even IRL bears. As if you don't remember, they capped out wall level plus to low small building level for especially strong members of bears, using weight calculations for said strong bears. So, yeah. And as it turns out, Freddy Fazbear can literally smash apart characters who's so small, building level AP and durability to a higher level than a wanked bear calculation.
There's also the fact that bears can barely...
Barely.
Shut up, worm! But as I was saying, bears at best can only bite through 1/2 inch of steel. They can't actually really get that into it.
Which is a pretty big disadvantage when fighting 7 feet and 380 pounds worth of the stuff. There's a reason that when those scientists put that food into a metal dumpster to test the bear's strength, the bear didn't just, bite into it or, break it apart. Because it couldn't.
So in all honesty, the matchup would be quite simple. The bear would walk up to Freddy, unable to bite through him, and Freddy would smash him apart, just like how we did the twisted ones. Low to mid diff at best if we use peak scaling for bears. If a bear tried this, they would make a new animatronic suit just for him, and he's going on the stage to perform forever since 1987, bro.
Yeah, as it would seem, you're right.
How many times do I have to tell you? Never question me, ever. I am the ultimate life form for a reason, after all.
I hope you know that your swamp is connected to 2 landfills in the sewer.
You're just mad that throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one.